Banner 3. A lot of new stuff on this one. First up, we have Cloud's ASB. 20 single target ranged physical wind attacks and 1 single target ranged physical wind attack that can break the damage cap. So it's one of those ASBs. Defining characteristic here. It's a plus wind sword. Kinda rare. Actually, this is the first one. First 6-star plus wind sword, right? So powerful relic. Obviously a powerful soul break on a powerful character. Wait, what's more to say? Noctis ASB is interesting. 3 single target auto critical. So they're automatically critical hits. Physical non-elemental attacks that can break the damage cap. Kind of interesting. Probably not going to be useful outside of the 15 torment because non-elemental stuff is really just kind of down there in the effective. What are you licking my arm? I have a skillet in my lap. I have to reach over her. Where I could see this possibly being maybe useful would be in a situation where you're using Zack's chain on a win team because the hits are critical, are automatically critical. Then he gets a 50% damage buff from just having that active. Probably still not. Let's be honest. Even intermediate wind characters get so many wind damage buffs that they're probably going to be more effective than Noctis with it just as ASB. But he may be worth using in situations where you have plus critical damage like that. If you have his USB 2 as well as his ASB. Because his USB 2 increases his non-elemental damage output. Well, Ruins the Banner is really strong language that I wouldn't use because the Final Fantasy 15 Tournament exists, and there's not a lot of Final Fantasy 15 characters. So this is actually just a good thing to have in the future, and this does, if I remember correctly, does not occur on the Final Fantasy 15 event where the Torment's released. So Ruin, again, that's a bit much. Cloud USB 2, 6-star wind armor, definitely awesome. 15 single target physical wind attacks in wind, and X mode true self. X mode true self is attack plus 30% and cast air hazard when using a wind attack. And air hazard is randomly deal 4 or 8 single target physical non-elemental attacks that can break the damage cap. Breaking the damage cap is kind of weird. It makes it sound better than it really is. It is really difficult without tons of stacking damage sources for a low multiplier chase to break the damage cap. You'd probably need Generation 2 Wind Chain, which there is not one. Cloud would have needed to use his USB 1 in order to give himself 100% crit rate. Zack, with his chain, could also work because of the 50% crit in addition to Cloud's USB 1. So Cloud's USB 1, his USB 2, and Zack's chain together. Probably his glint to end wind stack. At least 2 stacks. So I think it's just flavor. But it's still good. It's still a really good USB by itself. Just don't get like hyped up or anything for attacks that can break the damage cap. Because even if you are able to break the damage cap with them, it's not like they're going to exceed 10,000 very often. Just understand that Cloud gets a wind chase. Aerith USB 2. This is pretty much the banner headliner. I talked up Alara's USB, and I'm going to talk up Aerith's USB. Instant Curaga Medica, Last Stand, and Physical High Quick Cast 3. So just like Alara, she gets the first two, basic, and then some flavor, but not as universally as useful in both situations as Alara's. Last Stand is obviously a really good thing because there's a lot of... I don't want to see a lot, but there are mechanics in the game where being able to prevent death by damage is a very important thing to have. And second, we have Physical High Quick Cast 3. So at first glance you would say, oh, Physical High Quick Cast 3. That's better than High Quick Cast 2 for physical parties. But there's going to be a lot of physical parties where that is actually not better, because it's Physical High Quick Cast, which means the attack must deal physical damage in order for it to benefit from this. And if it doesn't deal physical damage, then you use the turn without gaining any benefit, which means heals, wrath, and trust, using magicites, none of that applies. So you would slow cast all of that, and that's why the generic High Quick Cast 2, in my opinion, is more valuable than the Physical High Quick Cast 3. But it's still obviously a really, really good thing. Remember, we're comparing the two best healer soul breaks in the entire game. So yeah, it seems like I'm talking down the status, but I'm really just I'm nitpicking between the two. All right, that's a good point. Is Generation 2 chains don't deal any damage, so they wouldn't get any benefit. And Last Stand's not always going to be useful. But when Last Stand is useful, it's a game changer. So that's why I say Alara's USB is more useful than Aerith's. But Aerith's does have the potential to be stronger than Alara's. One advantage that Alara's USB has over Aerith's has over Alara's is that Aerith is a Final Fantasy VII character. So she this is just a disgusting USB to have access to in the Final Fantasy VII Torment. But one of the two best healer soul breaks in the game, so an obviously big win on the banner. Even if you have Alara's USB, because there will be times where this wins you fights. Okay, fourth? Oh my god, we're already at the fifth. Zack's chain. This is what we're now calling a chain 1.5 or Gen 1.5, because Zack's chain, unlike the other Generation 1 chains, doesn't deal any damage, and it has a 50% attack buff on it, so it's much more similar to Gen 2 chains than it is Gen 1, but it does only have a 20% field effect. It does have a cap of 100%. It does make up for that a little bit with the 50% crit damage, but that doesn't help at all on teams that don't have high crit chances. So don't confuse it with a Generation 2 chain, but it is very similar to the way they operate, and it is very good because his element happens to include Cloud, so Cloud's ability to give himself 100% chance crit means this is useful. The only way I would consider plus crit damage to be useful is if I have at the very least, 50% critical rate. Stuff like Onion Knight USB could be used, but at the same time, that doesn't really work all that well. I mean, it works fine because of it's still powerful in comparison to other buffs, because there's an overlap between the attack buffs. You'd probably want to get your crit rate elsewhere, but that's why Cloud's USB is so good. But anyway, that's a 6-star portion of the banner. Cloud's ASB was easy to describe. It's just a really good ASB on a really good character, so obviously a big one. Noctis ASB is weaker because it's probably not useful outside of the Final Fantasy 15 Torment, but the Final Fantasy 15 Torment has a problem. The Final Fantasy 15 banners suck, so getting Final Fantasy 15 synergy outside of those realm banners can actually be nice. So it's not a waste. It's not a waste, but it is definitely a down point in the 6-star portion. I don't think we've experienced a down point in the 6-star portion on either of the previous 2 banners. Quite like this one. Cloud's USB 2 is obviously good. It's just a generic but strong chase USB. Aerith USB 2 is awesome. One of the best healer soul breaks in the game, and Zack's chain, good for wind. Great for wind. Oh, we got 2 glints on this one. Cloud's glint, instant 6 single target. He's got one of those. Gosh. Is that good? Or would I rather the high quick cast do? Well, it's neither here nor there. 6 single target physical wind non-elemental grants N-Wind and N-Wind stacking. Cloud with N-Wind stacking is quite powerful because something a lot of people run into with glints is they do too much damage. So if you're already using a 4-hit attack, like a 5-star wind spellblade, for instance, and you've got N-Winds, you're on a chain, you're doing a hell of a lot of damage, you're limited by 40,000. You can only do 10,000 per hit. Well, Cloud's different. Cloud, like Sephiroth, can break the damage cap with his USB. So Cloud's glint is actually unique in the fact that he can extend his damage over that damage cap. So using glints is going to be beneficial as long as you have his USB. USB's not on the banner, but if you've got it, his glint is pretty damn useful. So in the situation you don't have the ability to break the damage cap, using a glint can actually just mean nothing. You can use the glint and not do any more damage because you're running into the damage cap. Cloud, not so much. So I think I really like this on Cloud, as long as you've got his USB. USB 2 can also break the damage cap with the chases, but chases are pretty damn low multiplier, so you probably need to stack up a lot of N-Wins. 2 glints and a USB to give yourself 3 stacks until you can start seeing the benefit there. But I feel confident in saying that you're going to want USB, not USB 2 in combination with this, or all 3 together. That would also be awesome. And it's not like that's out of the realm of possibility, because there's a lot of soul breakpoints in this game to go around, especially now that we have those soul breakpoint buffs. Everything is in place now. We've gotten both of the buffs in the game. Okay, next up, Noctis' glint instant stone skin 100%. Ugh. And combat rank boost to the user. Combat rank boost is not that useful, because that means you're going to be required to hone Omega Drive, which you don't want to do in order to get an increased damage. Omega Drive is only 4 hits. What we need in order for this to be useful is, well, another 6-star combat ability that has more than 4 attacks. And it's Stone Skin 100%. Which is really only useful in conjunction with his OSB, which gives him 3 times cast speed. But as of this festival, 3 times cast speed isn't really all that useful anymore. I mean, it's really good, but it's not as useful as it once was. You know, back in the day when we had Orlando's OSB, when, you know, using his OSB was like using a USB because it granted him 3 times cast speed. And then we saw Noctis's OSB. We're like, holy crap, he gets that too, and an attack buff. But it was only worth anything if you could protect that stone skin buff. So now that we're able to refresh the stone skin buff with Noctis's glint, we've run into a matter where, because of Aerith and Alara, cast speed isn't as useful and not as worth protecting anymore. So Noctis's glint actually just stinks. So this is a black mark on the banner. So consider this like banner 2 when there's one good glint for Terra. And then consider this just a bad burst soul break, like Creel's. Cloud burst soul break 2, not as useful as it once was. 8 single target, physical, wind, non-elemental attacks, and wind. Command 1 is 4 single target, wind, non-elemental, damage scales with user's attack. And then the nice part about Cloud's BSB2 was it gave Cloud the ability to deal wind damage. And it's a combat command, so he was able to dual cast it. But that changes with this festival since we get a 5-hit, 5-star, or 4-hit, 5-star wind spellblade ability for Cloud to use, which has a higher multiplier than even this ability, if I remember correctly. Cloud also gets the ability with his LMR2 to dual cast wind damage ability. So even though it's a spellblade, you can still dual cast it. So it's a lot to ask for to cast this burst soul break just for the sake of this command, which you could dual cast or triple cast theoretically with his LMR2 and his LM2. And then his command 2. 2 area effect, physical, wind, non-elemental attacks that grants Bark Dargon. And Bark Dargon is a attack plus 30%, defense minus 30%. And when you use it, it instantly boots all Cloud users from your multiplayer games, which is pretty powerful. It's a ID Bark. So maybe that is worth using just by itself. But Cloud's BSB2 isn't that great anymore, because what it was the ability to give him N wind. But he's got better ways to do that now. He's got a glint, which is obviously awesome, and he has a USB2, which is everything his BSB2 is but better. So this is a consolation prize. Next up, we have Zack's Burst Soul Break, 8 random ranged physical wind earth attacks and Peril Wind. I am a professional, okay, Adia? Imperil Winds, Command 1, 4 single target physical wind non-elemental attacks at fast speed, really fast speed, 0.6 cast speed, which is kind of neat. May even be worth using if you haven't gotten to the point in the fight where you've got your ripping blast. That name. You've got your ripping blast up to 5 hits. Because this attacks so quickly that it might be good with this chain. And 2 area effect, which is also really fast cast speed. This is not bad to be here, because his USB is better. His USB is better than his BSB in every way. But his USB is not here, so if you don't have Zack's USB, this makes a good complementary soul break to go along with this chain. An actual compliment from Medea? Oh, I'm surprised. Yeah, I did make note of that. Paranoid. Remember, make sure you're live with the stream. Alright, Noctis BSB2. Instantaneous. Finally, at least Noctis's Burst Soul Break 2 has that going for it. 10 single target, non-elemental. Combat King, nice buff. At least the ability to buff his damage a little bit, even though it's non-elemental. 2 single target, physical non-elemental, high quick cast 2. Remember what I said about quick cast? Not as useful as it once was, because there's so many sources of quick cast in the game externally. So if you're going to grant yourself high quick cast, it better come with something worthwhile. And high quick cast is supposed to be the worthwhile thing for using as command 1, because the 2 single target non-elemental attacks sure as shit aren't. Command 2, Stone Skin 30%, Smart Ether 1, which was handy back in the day when we didn't have as many crystals, but everyone should be safely able to make at least an R2 a Mega Drive these days. This burst, probably useful for Final Fantasy 15 Torment again, but not terribly useful outside of it. Aerith Burst Soul Break, Kira Medica, Stone Skin 30%, Astra to the party. Instant Kiraja, basic Medica commands. This is a very good burst. It was better. I would still say it's pretty damn good. Because Aerith has a 25% chance to dual cast on her LMR. So she's a very effective healer, undived. And as the game progresses, Stone Skin 30% protects for more because our HP pools get bigger, and because now we have, you know, crystal water and stuff like that. So the Cura Medica combined with the Stone Skin 30% is actually pretty good. And obviously Astra's nice. So those two things together make her probably one of the better Astra healers in the game. Not probably, she is. So she's good as a healer inside the Final Fantasy 15 Torment. Obviously, she's the only healer. And outside, she becomes one of the better healers for when you need Astra. I think I would prefer to get Astra from other places because of the potency of healers like Alara, Aerith, Realm, and Aphmau. But if you need it, it's there. And I have made many team comps with using Larsa as a primary healer because the Astra has been so useful. Okay, so Aerith BSB is actually a good pickup. Zack BSB is complementary. Cloud BSB is complementary if you whiff on his glint and USB 2. There's just those 4 bursts. At least 2 of them are good. It's a good question, Paranoid. I'm not sure, actually. But honestly, I'm pretty down on Cloud's BSB 2 and Noctis' BSB. And I suppose Zack's burst, because you need his chain. And if I'm going to say that this is a complimentary piece, I gotta say that, you know, I like this too. But I think there's more... I suppose that's my point. There's more ways to run Cloud without his Bursal Break 2 even being a thing than there is Zack. Because Zack's USB, as far as I know, doesn't show up anywhere anymore, so getting his BSB is still a worthwhile thing to have if you get his chain. Okay, so that's the burst section. Another 3 LMR banner, Cloud, LMR 2, 25% chance to dual cast abilities to deal wind damage. Obviously, really good. Really good on Cloud. Aerith LMR, 25% chance to dual cast white magic abilities. Well, that is pretty swell on one of the best healers in the game. And Noctis LMR, 25% chance to dual cast combat abilities. That is good for Noctis, but Noctis is... You know, good for Torment. Good for Torment. Keep telling yourself that, Dirge. Keep telling yourself that. The banner is good. It's just weird. Because there's so many slots on the banner dedicated to Torment only, where I think what I want from banners these days is be good for Torments for the characters that are on it, and be good for Magicites for the elements that are on it. If you can't achieve that, then why am I pulling on you instead of another banner? Noctis does get a pseudo-element, and it does make him much better. It makes him actually usable. Not, like, too strong, and maybe not even... You may not even break onto anybody's teams, but it is something that Noctis is moving in the right direction. It's just going to take a lot longer. He's not there yet, in my opinion. So, for this banner, it has some really, really strong stuff on it with Cloud's ASB, Cloud's USB 2, and Aerith's USB 2, and Zack's CSB. You just have one missing spot at the top. That's not even that much of a missing spot, and I think a lot of people might get tripped up because of that, and I don't think it's that fair, because most of the banner is really powerful. It's wind focused, even though it does have a couple non-elemental things on it. Cloud's ASB and Glint both appear in the next, or appeared in the next festival for Japan, but that's not guaranteed at all. We saw Bart's get removed from this festival, so nothing's sacred. Okay, you have all BSBs. There's a great, you know, not so hypothetical situation. You have all the BSBs on the banner, which, you know, who cares? But your physical wind is bad. What is your alternatives for pulling on this banner? The Final Fantasy V banner has Bart's ASB and Glint on it, and his USB 2, all of which would be potent wind, but that's a single character. Though it is 3. Four soul breaks. His wind burst is also on the banner. But I can't think of anything else. I can't think of any, like, valuable replacements other than that Bart's banner. I try not to, Will. Trust me, I'm profane enough. When I can, I don't. That is true, Dragon. And that is an important thing to note. That if you're doing well, or you've done well in 4-star Magicite, we are not going to need wind damage for a very long time. The first 5-star Magicite is the lightning Magicite, which means we need earth damage. And then it goes around the ring. And what happens when you go around the ring? Well, you get to the earth Magicite last. So 6 months after the release of 5-star Magicite is when we only need earth damage. And the 5-star Magicites are 3 months from now. I can do math. 9 months until wind damage is needed for Magicites again. So if you're pulling on this banner, it better be because you need wind damage for 4-star Magicites. Otherwise, please wait. There's so many opportunities and festivals in between now and the Earth Magicite before you need any of this again. That's true. That's also a good point, and something that I had entertained is that if you do get a lot of the stuff off the first banner, or never planned on pulling on the first banner, but don't get Alara's USB, and you want a powerful healer, all of a sudden this banner becomes an option because Aerith's USB 2 becomes extra important to you. So this would be an option, and so would waiting until the next festival. Because Alara's USB, in my opinion, will be there. Because she's a record keeper character. It's got to be in the festivals. But they did not put Tyro in the next festival. Curious. What's up, Skillet? Yeah, Lara will be there. Definitely. 99% certain. Alright, yeah, any more comments on the banner? Got through that one really quickly. Did I miss anything? It's because Noctis just brings a lot of easy to describe things to the table because he's only useful in a single fight. Or at least with elemental characters, I can usually talk about more than just their element. Skillet, come on. No, no, no. Come up over here. Over here. No, don't. You're gonna hit your head if you try to jump up from beneath the table. Noctis ASB animation is pretty good, but it does lose a lot of its oomph. Because it's probably not gonna have voices. Is Noctis useful for non-elemental fights? Yeah. I mean, it's probably the best other than Cloud. Skillet, I don't why? Stop. Keep sticking her head in a bowl that doesn't have anything in it. What are you doing? Yeah, I agree. There's so many of our soul breaks that would be much better. Much, much better if they had the voice acting. Like, okay, I didn't spend that long on the expander, so I'm gonna show you what I mean. It's just so good. So good. I kind of like Zack's chain the way it is because it's just creepy. Zack, what are you doing? Zack, okay.